today's Titan Wealth podcast, I talk to Dan Dickinson, Tyla, Phillips and Burrows, who are some of the founders of the Dubai business. We talk about global opportunities within wealth planning, their journey becoming part of the wider Titan group, and we talk about how they motivate their staff and preserve their culture. Hi guys, I think we should probably start by introducing ourselves. So Tyla, do you want to start? Give yourself an overview of who you are and where you've come from.
Yeah, no worries. I'm Tyla Phillips, the Joint International Managing Director here at Titan Wealth International. Previously was advising, kind of building a book of clients, and now really focused on leading the business, kind of helping create an environment for our staff to kind of deliver the best outcome for our clients, really, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Will?
William Burrows, same as Tyla, International Managing Director. Originally moved internationally 13 years ago as an advisor, and then have kind of grown through to establishing Harrison Rowe, AHR, and now part of Titan. Same really as what Tyla said, helping facilitate the growth of the business on a daily basis.
Dan?
I am Daniel Dickinson. I'm the CEO, founded AHR with Will and Tyla and Mark Assad and Dan Waterman, who sadly aren't here today. So yeah, between the three of us, with the support of the other guys, we built the business and ultimately became part of Titan in July 2024.
So something that struck me when I first came out here to meet with you guys was a year and a half ago now. Was I think there's a misconception that the population here in Dubai and often then the businesses are quite transient, but actually you guys have all been here for quite a long time now. Do you think that having moved here yourselves and moved away from your, in inverted commas, home country, because I'm not sure any of you would think of the UK as being your home anymore, do you think that gives you a really good insight into what your clients are going to as and when they relocate?
Yeah, I think all of us have been here for more than 10 years. I've done 11, Will.
13.
Dan, even longer?
18 years into a one-year trip, as we speak.
And I think when we first moved here, it was very much, and I had that same approach, I'm assuming you did as well. It was, I'm going to come here for a couple of years, kind of earn a bit of money and then go back. And I think that was the standard approach people were saying. And now it's actually kind of more difficult to find someone that's been here less than 5 years. So I feel like the nature of the people coming here has changed. And I'd actually say people now feel like they are planning now to stay here longer than they used to previously.
I'd say you guys actually hosted a town hall this morning, and Dan, you said that 50% of your staff here now have been with the business more than 5 years. So again, that proves that this isn't like a transient temporary thing. This is a real bolt hole for our international business now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's good to know at least someone was paying attention. But a lot of our staff, we've celebrated in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 people have been here now, over 10 years. 50% of the staff have been here 5 years. But I think tying that back into Dubai in general, when I first arrived, as Tyla said, people would come for a short time, a good time, but maybe not a serious time. So it would be people really young trying to get to a place in life where they had a bit of money, as Tyla said, or it was people that maybe took a role in the last few years of their career. I remember talking to many people that would view it as going to work on the rigs, as it were. So they would come here, they'd earn the money in the sort of twilight of their career and they'd leave. But I think Dubai's infectious, right? Like it's really difficult because particularly the UK media, they portray Dubai in a certain way and people think it's glitz, glamour, parties, Lamborghinis, marble hotels and things like that. And the reality is of living here, it isn't that. And everyone that moves here has moved here for a common reason, whether that is as crude as earning more money or to better their lives or to better educate or support their children or whatever. But what that does, it gives every single person from anywhere in the world one thing in common before they even, step off the plane. There's an amazing billboard between Dubai and Abu Dhabi for Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank. And you'll have to forgive the numbers, but it says ambition in big letters, and it says it's the reason that 243 nationalities and religions can live together in perfect harmony. Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely ideal, and that's the same with our business. Like, everyone here has got a common goal, a common interest. We're all working towards the same target. So that makes coming to work quite easy, and if it's easy and it's enjoyable and you live in a nice place, people generally stay, right?
So obviously with a population that's growing daily, that creates an opportunity for a business like ours, and for financial planning as an industry. So Will, can I ask you, you obviously, when you were starting out with your business, you perceived that opportunity set. What was it like building a business out here in a growing jurisdiction?
I think it was very different than it is now. I think if we look back 5, 10, 15 years ago, I think the reputation of the industry out here was tainted through a variety of issues, from unqualified advisors to unregulated businesses. And when we established Harrison Rowe, we had the opportunity to go and partner, it was in 2018, with a couple of different businesses in order to establish. We went with Dan and Mark at Arlo, because they had the business that ultimately had the best reputation in the environment. And whilst the reputation at the time in the industry was really poor, you could see that evolving with increasing regulations, the tightening of regulations, the implementation of the regulations. And so for us, it was about building a business that would last the length of time against what everything else that was being done across the industry. And I think we talk about it regularly, where it must be quite difficult to build a really good business in an environment where everyone else is doing the right thing. You've really got to separate yourself with a good USP. And what's became quite apparent initially as Harrison Rowe, and then ultimately as soon as we became AHR, was if you build a business that's based around delivering the best outcomes to clients and provide the best platform for everybody who operates within it, and your USP is just doing the right thing, then suddenly it became very, very easy to build the business and grow through having the right brand, the right reputation, the right outcome for clients. And so it was difficult in the outset. I mean, moving here, we talked about yesterday, was facing the uphill battle of bad reputation. But I think we're now reaping the rewards of all the work that's been done over the last 8 years, and then even longer. I mean, was it 12 years for Arlo?
Yeah.
I think. So yeah.
And Tyler, when you qualified as a financial planner, you were very young, weren't you? So do you think that having had that experience in the UK, which is obviously highly regulated and dealing with the FCA in that space and whatnot, do you think that gave you quite a good background when you were setting up the business here?
I think it did, but to be honest, back then when I moved here, it was still very difficult because not many people even knew what that meant, and the market wasn't very mature, right? So there was a lack of qualifications, and also when you come from the UK, it doesn't mean you necessarily know how to build a new client bank from here. Because when I was in the UK at a bank, you just follow process. You get given clients. The clients want to meet you. So coming out here was still very different. So as much as I felt it would be beneficial, it probably wasn't as beneficial in the early stages. As the market has matured, I think now being highly qualified is actually a lot. It gives you a lot more credibility because people understand what it means now, and I think the market here genuinely has matured. The quality of advice has got better, but I'd say at the early stages it probably wasn't as impactful as I was probably hoping. Is the truth.
So we're obviously now part of a bigger business. When you were looking to sell your business, you had a few suitors to court, didn't you? What made you go with Titan?
To be honest with you, we weren't looking to sell. Our original target, I actually started this myself. I think it was Tyla and Mark that I'd sort of said, I think we need to raise some capital. I think we need to expand. And I think the thing that aligned us to what ultimately became Titan was we were effectively looking to do a buy and build. We had a great business. It wasn't for sale. We wanted capital to expand and to grow and develop our culture, the environment, and be in different jurisdictions, which we did achieve. I'd spent that period meeting people saying, look, this is what we'd like to achieve. This is what I think we can achieve. We created a deck that I still have. I looked through it the other day. And it's amazing. You look at that with a great amount of pride. But having spent 12 months meeting investment houses and family offices and everything, and being offered the money, but then being expected to move your clients into investments that we just didn't think were suitable, we were just going to continue as was. We reinvested everything into the guys and the business and everything else. And then I wasn't begged, but strong-armed into meeting Titan. I met Mark Livesey. We had a great conversation just down here next to the swimming pool of all places in true Dubai fashion. Tyla and I then met James. And I think it's clear, we laugh now because we went through a year of ups and downs like you wouldn't believe, but the deal was done in effect from meeting one or two. You know, it's impossible not to be impressed by James when you meet him. We really like the vision, the ethics, the morals, what they wanted to achieve. They didn't have an international arm to them. Obviously, your part of the business was still in that transition period. So we saw a massive opportunity to come in and develop what they'd built in the UK, but also satisfy our dreams and ambitions by building a large international business. And I think that, you know, without wanting to self-promote, I think in the last 12, 18 months, I think we've done an incredible job of certainly expanding the footprint, putting in the groundwork, building the staff. And now it's just going back to the things that particularly Will and Tyla are amazing at in terms of delivering for the guys to be the best that they can be. So it's really exciting for us these next 12, 24, 36 months because everything's now built. And obviously we're relatively well capitalised as well, which makes having built a business like we did from scratch, it's a hell of a lot easier having money than not having it.
So when financial planning is not my my expertise, if you like. I come from an investment background. So as I've got to know your business, my understanding is that you've kind of paved a new path in terms of acquisition in financial planning businesses. Is that right? In terms of how the deal is structured for the advisors and the opportunities that you provide them for growth and exit and whatnot. Can you explain a little bit more about how that works in reality? Tyla, I think probably you're the best person to answer this.
Yeah, look, as the market out here was very much focused on advisors coming over and being self-employed really and have a share of revenue they bring in. And that has actually not been the best for a number of reasons. One, you're seeing some really talented, highly qualified advisors come out here that are expected then to go and find clients. And as I said before, they've not got the experience to go out and build that book, right? But they are amazing in front of clients and kind of problem solving and delivering advice. But you see a lot of advisors come here and fail because they wasn't given the activity or the exposure to sit down with these clients. And then you've also got the other side of it where a lot of the advisors that have built very good client bases have now become farmers in essence, where they are servicing clients, but really they're not passionate about servicing and they still really want to go out and take on new clients. So the market had evolved over time and we ended up seeing advisors not particularly fulfilled, clients arguably not serviced as well as we would hope. And what we then done, we tried to give an opportunity for the advisors to not have to wait to the end of their career to then either cash in on all the hard work they've done and actually have the opportunity to potentially take some money off the table now, make them financially free, focus on some doing the work that they want to do, which could be the problem solving, and then hire a team of advisors that actually are passionate about servicing clients, giving that right outcome. So we actually built a model where probably didn't exist in the market, it's fair to say, Will.
I don't think we found it anywhere else.
Yeah. So people have the opportunity now to focus on what they're doing. They have an opportunity to sell some of the recurring income that they have built and then focus on the bits that really they want to be doing the whole time, really, I guess.
I wonder whether we'll see that model be adopted by competitors of ours in the industry then. Have you seen any of that already? Or
I think the reality is it's the competitors have got to be able to financially support that, right? Or cash flow that. And I think the reality is a lot of our firms will offer a guaranteed exit for these people at the end. But if everyone knocked at our door, we didn't have the money to do it, is a reality. So we had executed that on some people that were retiring or leaving the industry, but we were never going to be in a position to roll it out to everyone. Whereas now we have got the ability to do that, and we've obviously proven it so far. So it gives that real comfort to advisors, knowing that they're at a place where they are working hard, building a great client base, but can actually take advantage of that on a quarterly basis. We offer it. So it doesn't have to be all in one go. It doesn't need to be at the end.
Quarterly is quite often, isn't it, really? When you think about it?
Our finance team tell us that as well. But it's just giving the opportunity for people to have that on an ongoing basis and really ensuring that we are in passing the clients and expanding the proposition to how to cater for that as well. So it's really important. We spend a lot of time and energy building our global wealth division, which is our salaried advisors, and they need to be kind of in place to actually be able to onboard and service these clients. And so far, I think they've done an absolutely amazing job.
So how do you guys work behind the scenes to make sure that the international business is fully integrated with the UK business and that we're all operating as one Titan?
I mean, look, the truth is, and there's no point doing these things if it's not the truth, right? It isn't fully integrated. It's a work in progress. We developed a really robust, strong, successful repatriation element to our business. That's been developed, and we are very fortunate in the fact that when people are moving back to the UK, we're now of such size and scale that I don't think any client we've got would ever be more than a couple of hours away. It maybe not even that from one of our offices. So if a client returns to the UK, the integration element is really important because it means they get an advisor on the ground that can obviously give advice in that jurisdiction. It's not just the UK also, of course, but it also means that we retain that relationship. The integration element, the one Titan and one team, one dream, whatever we want to refer that to. I think the truth of the matter is at the minute, if you had the three of us in a different room, four of us with yourself, and asked each of us what that meant, you'd probably get four different answers. I think given our positions in the group, you would get something very similar, but that'll be a success when you can ask that to any one of the 200 people out there and everyone gives you something within a parameter as to what One Titan means to them. But the integration element, in the fullness of time, that's naturally going to evolve as people get used to the way people work. But at the minute, we're having huge success with it. And we're really fortunate, going back to the Dubai piece, that there's a lot more people moving here than there is returning to the UK. So it's more about the integration this way, and that is second to none in terms of process, structure. We're doing everything for our clients moving here to help them find properties, sort out their visas, bank accounts. We've done things, cars, schools, nurseries, absolutely everything, very much concierge-like, to be honest. So the integrations, it's working well, but to say it's perfect would be a stretch of the truth.
I don't think anybody wants it to be perfect, though, really. I think we're an entrepreneurial type of person that works at Titan, aren't we? And I think that it would be a less appealing journey to be walking into like a fully finished corporate business. I think most of us enjoy the roller coaster, don't we? And being able to build it ourselves. That was my view on it.
Yeah, and I think our guys out there are really excited about the opportunity to be able to develop and grow into Titan. Whereas as our business previously, there was very much a glass ceiling. It's where do you go next? There is a limited amount of roles. And I think as Titan now, as we grow from a jurisdictional point of view and into different areas, it really gives the guys a lot of comfort that they've got huge growth opportunities. And that is where the One Titan comes in. And I think it's really important that we get to a stage where we all feel comfortable to speak to each other in different areas and use each other for any problem solving or sharing best practice going forward.
We couldn't have been acquired by a better business. I don't know what the word is. I very nearly said ironically enough, but when we did this and we first got our exposure to the private equity and things like that, I don't think I was alone in thinking this might not be the most fun journey, reporting back at a level of finance that none of us were used to. But it's actually, been incredible. Like what we loved was building the business, being entrepreneurial, finding an opportunity, going, right, let's give it a go. And it's one of those things where, I forget the phrase, but we're sort of abnormally confident about our ability to do things. It's not an arrogance, but we'll give something a go. As long as we're licensed, as long as the governance is there, as long as the compliance is there, as long as we can provide good outcomes for clients, we'll set up an office and we'll believe in ourselves that we can do it. And I think that one of the major differences between other businesses that have been backed by the same capital, we retain that entrepreneurial spirit. And while they're coming up with reasons why it can't be done, we're already 50% down the line of trying to do it. Now, we don't get everything right, but we'll always try. And invariably, as we learn and grow and develop, we get more things right more often. So on that basis, I think that's really the reason that for the last 12 months, we've really gone from strength to strength.
I think also if you look at the when we merged Harrison Rowe and Arlo, it very much felt at the time like we were bringing pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together.
And so just to expand on that, you guys were Harrison Rowe, and Dan, you and Mark were Arlo, is that right? And which side was Assad on?
So Assad and Daniel Waterman, Tyler and I were Harrison Rowe.
Gotcha.
And then Dan and Mark were Arlo. So that was 2018 that we established Harrison Rowe, partnered with Arlo. And then 2 years later, in June the 3rd, 2020, we arrived in this office as AHR, all as one. But I think that was the main point, is that when we put the six of us together, it very much felt like there were pieces of a jigsaw puzzle coming together to create a kind of perfect picture where everyone knew what they were doing and everyone had their own roles. But one of the things that challenged us over the 4 years, and going back to probably the original question about why Titan, is we never took a dividend out of the business. As Harrison Rowe, as Arlo, as AHR, it was all reinvested back in. I think we were talking about this earlier, is what Sam asked us, I think yesterday, is what are the challenges, where were the difficulties over the last 4 years? And I think they came from, I think most of the, I wouldn't say arguments, but the debates or the challenging conversations that everyone has at board level came from which initiative are we actually going to go after, which one are we not going to go after, because they're not high margin businesses. We don't have free running capital that we can throw at every opportunity available and see which one works. And I think if we look at the last 12 months in reflection, or 15 months now it might be with Titan, not only is there the capital available for the right initiative, but there's additional pieces of that jigsaw puzzle we didn't know we needed, which is the expertise, the knowledge, the skill set that group have that we don't have in certain areas, that have been massively helpful in going after different jurisdictional expansion, different proposition solutions, etc. That's been really, really, really good.
So let's talk about growth then, because I think from a group perspective, this business here is really at the heart of a lot of the growth that we'll be hopefully seeing in the next couple of years. So how has being part of a bigger group changed the conversations that you have about risk and about growth and about target businesses? Because obviously you're in a very different place than you were a couple of years ago before you were bought.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with every opportunity, it presents risk, right? I think that our answers to date have been giving you the romantic side of what we're doing and talking about where we started and what we developed and what we built and what we became. But obviously all these things come with risk. But the main focus for us in terms of risk is making sure that we're adequately licensed. We're not just jumping across borders and providing advice to people in places that we shouldn't be. When we did the transaction, we had a license in Malaysia, we had a license in Mauritius. And the Americans that were ultimately reviewing the financials of this, that was the first place that they looked, because obviously to people across the pond, they look at those jurisdictions with, a bit of fear, I would say. We'd not used either of those jurisdictions for anything. So while there's other businesses in the world that go and get these licenses in these far-flung places and use them for what I would say are completely inappropriate things, we've always come at it from, are we best placed to deliver this advice? Are we best protected? And by we, I mean all the stakeholders. Firstly, the client, because ultimately, when you're getting licenses, what does that actually mean? To say to someone we're licensed here is effectively giving the client recourse, right? They want, if something was untoward was to happen, they want the ability to seek remediation for that. That then filters down into other elements of it, across the business, across all of it, from investments and ultimately the people. But if you put the right people in the right place, that isn't actually ever really anything that gets to us, because our compliance teams here locally and in each of the jurisdictions, they're absolutely phenomenal. It's those people that this business is built on. Everyone in the international space, or really, I guess, any business, they think that these businesses are built on the advisors. Our business is inverted in that instance. We're at the bottom, and it's our job to support everybody to be as successful as they can be. The middle tier would be the administration, the operations guys, and the compliance. And finally, there's the advisors that are then given all the tools and equipment to go out and be successful. So our risk is mitigated so much by the talent and the ability of the people that sit within the business. And that's only been enhanced by being part of Titan, because we've got some vastly experienced people that have seen almost everything there is to see, which again has upskilled our guys locally. It's a team that, going back to One Titan, everything is starting to integrate really slowly. But those things integrated first because, I mean, let's face it, one compliance officer generally likes another compliance officer. So that, it works really, really well.
They do all seem to work quite well across all the jurisdictions, don't they? They have formed quite a solid core that supports us all. So I want to talk about people and talk about your culture here, because I think it's quite widely known and respected around the group that you guys have built a really solid team here that really enjoy working together, hopefully enjoy coming to work. And I would hope that that's also the case around Titan Group. But what have you focused on in order to build that, and how do you protect that as you become part of a bigger business?
Yeah, I don't think we've focused on it. I think that's just naturally what's happened over time. And the thing with us, when we built this business, it was always built on transparency and honesty, right? So every time we've had a challenging conversation or situation where we felt it might impact the guys, we'd bring people in and let them know what we're thinking and why. So we don't just tell them this is happening and there's no other route. So they always feel involved. They always feel they've got a voice to be able to kind of say how they're feeling, and that if we can do something or they've got an idea that we can do it differently, we're all ears for that. Always have been. So I feel over time we've earned that kind of respect with the guys, and anyone that's coming into the business has really felt it. Like, we genuinely really care about the people, and I think then it's infectious, right? People in the office then start caring about each other, and then we have that very much a very tight team. We socialise a lot together. Obviously, people here, especially, you moved away from your family, right? So quite often the people you work with become your friends. That's slightly different if you're in the UK, typically. So I think that's also had a big impact to it. As we grow into these other jurisdictions, it's really important we try and not try and tell the new companies how to do it, but it's really just to kind of understand who they are and how they operate and make them feel special and part of that. And then as a collective, we start to kind of try and get them to see how we operate and then share best practice. But if the firms we're buying or acquiring can do things better than us, we're also going to try and take advice from them.
Mm-hmm.
I think just to add to that, and Dan just touched on it there, is our role is to serve, it's to provide and facilitate. And if we spend our time helping everybody else do the job they're here to do, the job that they want to do, ultimately people are motivated by what they enjoy most about their job, what the purpose is and where they feel they're going to have an impact, and least motivated by doing the bits of the job they don't think they should be doing. So our role really is, as leaders within the business, is actually to remove all of the noise surrounding everybody in their roles and facilitate everybody to do the bit of the job that they enjoy doing, that where they get their purpose, where they have an impact, and remove everything else. And ultimately they become more motivated, they become happier in their position, but that provides a culture of collaboration. And then that carries on through when we're not there, they're helping one another. It's this environment where if I can take a task off somebody else they shouldn't really be doing and give it to the person who should be doing it, they're happier, they've now got something they should be doing, and it just works in full circle, essentially.
We do it in a... we're quite big on analogies, and everything that you've just said, we've repeated this like almost every day. Like, there'll be someone saying this to someone in this business, not even necessarily us. That's how successful it's been, that there's people out there that will say it in our absence. But I think to explain what it is something we spoke about first years ago, and it's the watching eye effect. So a group of psychologists, wherever they might have been, they did a test on tips in restaurants when we used that old-fashioned thing called cash. They would put a tip jar next to the till, and they put 2 eyes above the tip jar. And the restaurants that had 2 eyes above the tip jar got double the amount of tips than the restaurants that didn't have 2 eyes above the tip jar.
Okay.
And it's because everybody felt like they were being watched. And the whole premise of that is the way that you behave when no one's watching. And we've said that to the guys endlessly. And the best example that we can give, we spoke about it this morning at the town hall, we've always been really big on supporting, no one, I said yesterday, like the 3 letters after my name are meaningless. Like, that happens to be my role in this business. But I'm no more or less important than Melanie that helps keep the office really nice and tidy. Mm-hmm. And last year we obviously make donations to make sure that these people can have nice Christmases and everything else. And when we went to do it, the guys had already done it. And they'd raised more money than we ever had. that is literally the watching eye effect. Like, they know that they should do it and they did it themselves. They don't need any input from us. And I could give you lots and lots of examples where people have done that, but everyone here behaves as if they're being watched when they're not. And I think if you can get to a point where your environment allows people to behave like that, then you create something special, which is what I believe we've got.
I think we've always been really protective of our culture in the Channel Islands as well. We have amazing offices down there. And we were scared as well when we got bought by a bigger business. But actually, I think that everybody I've met from Titan Group, from all over the place, I'd be very happy to have round to my house for dinner. So it's been a really reassuring process. Like, I've met really nice people. We clearly have low standards, you know. I'll let anyone in, apparently.
I said that yesterday. Have you stolen that from me?
How do you motivate advisors? How does it work in terms of the setup with the BDMs and the support system? Can you just give me a kind of chain analogy of how it goes from sort of client to right through to the kind of the central investment proposition? What does that journey look like?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So I think coming back to the motivation piece is similar to what I was saying a minute ago. Is people tend to be motivated when they're doing the part of the job they absolutely love, and they tend to be least motivated when they're not. And so building out the infrastructure around the positions for people to fill that support the advisor to best give the advice to the client has been key in allowing them just to spend their time in front of clients. An advisor really shouldn't be doing anything other than client meetings. And I'm not necessarily saying they should be doing them back to back all day, but that's where their value is. It's where they gain most of their benefit from. And so as a prospect comes through the digital marketing strategy, for example, they'll come through and speak to a business development manager.
And the digital marketing strategy is you guys promoting your business using SEO and
our
similar.
business, yeah. I mean, it's everything that we do is ultimately supported by what happens at Group in terms of the sports partnerships and the wider branding. All we've done so far is essentially try to take the knowledge and expertise that we have within the advisor business and translate that into information that's available to be searched for by prospective clients online. And when they come through to the business, they then initially deal with a business development manager, ideally so they can be dealt with or spoken to quite quickly. For that person to then ascertain what are their objectives, what do they need help with, where are they based, which advisor do they need to speak to, which regulated business do they need to engage with, and then following that conversation, they'll diarise a meeting with the advisor.
So they'll find the best advisor for that client based on the expertise that the client needs in whatever their situation is.
Yeah, exactly. And
Again,
then,
so it all comes back to best outcome for clients.
best outcome. And then the advisor will carry out the meeting and the meeting with the prospective client and go through the journey. That'll be supported often by an administrator, a paraplanner or an associate. And then that advisor will also interlink back with various other people within the business, which may not just simply include our business. It might be an external panel. So, for example, it could be including Rebecca on a meeting, Andreas, Ian for the investment side. It might be that we need to reach out to a local accounting practice or law firm because of the legality of the advice that's been delivered. Or we'll reach back in and request meetings with Pete, for example, or Ian Wood, or it might be somebody else in the wider business. The objective being that we can deliver a completely comprehensive piece of advice to the client that's bulletproof, ultimately protecting everybody. And then often when that client wishes to come on board, it's the team behind the scenes then that will go through the onboarding of the client. So the advisor then focus on their day-to-day engaging with their existing clients and new clients. And then they'll go through the onboarding process as they probably do in the Channel Islands and the rest of the UK.
The key thing there that Will hasn't mentioned is the structure that you alluded to earlier on, in the fact that the client comes in and obviously we want to give the client the best advice they can possibly get. But because of the structure that we've built and this one Titan ambition, no one really cares where that lead, if we can call that, goes. As long as that client is going to the best possible person in the business, that element that was very prevalent in other businesses, many years ago, if somebody was getting a lot of clients or everything, it could create issues. Whereas what we do is try and take the best client to the best advisor to give them the best service. They're then passed on to the Global Wealth Division, who, as Tyla mentioned earlier on, are really focused on that service proposition, being there every day. And as Will just mentioned then, that advisor then goes back to what the advisor loves, which is giving advice and making sure that these clients are on the right path to get the best outcome. So it's a really nice relationship all the way through. And mainly it gives that client 4, 5, 6 touch points in the business, often in very different offices, which again provides that level of comfort.
And then every member of staff gets to play to their strengths as well.
Which makes them happy, and
Full circle.
round we go.
So looking forward then, now as part of Titan wider group, will that allow you to, or is the aim to, kind of raise standards of financial planning? I mean, across the world, really, right? We have big plans to be able to service clients, all over the place, really. So, do you think that gives us an opportunity that, and that in a space that isn't really being covered?
Yeah, and I think we have built, in the jurisdictions we operate now, we've built a very robust system, giving good, solid advice. There are territories we now want to move into, and we are in conversations to be able to do that in the next kind of 6 to 12 months. And it's really understanding a lot of these firms do have good infrastructure and good compliance and processes in place, to be honest, a lot better than they used to. So a lot of these firms, we will adapt, we'll take what they've got and then look to continue with that. Where we can see improvements, then we'll look to improve. Where I then see a huge opportunity, there's a lot of advisors now, other firms, that if a client moves jurisdiction, they're losing that relationship. So there's not many firms that are truly global, and that's where I think there's a huge opportunity for us to attract the right people to come and work with us, because they then have the ability to keep that client relationship within group wherever they go in the world. Whereas the client usually doesn't want to leave the advisor anyway or leave that company, but there's not many companies out there that can actually continue to look after them. So regulation getting harder and stricter is actually a benefit to us right now, because it's going to mean that we are actually one of the only firms out there that can look to cater for what that client and advisor wants.
Higher common standard.
Exactly.
And ultimately, that's then better for the business and the client, because they don't have the upheaval of having to move to a different firm, go through all of the onboarding and whatnot.
Yeah.
So do you think we can replicate the success that we've seen out here in the Middle East in other jurisdictions?
I think it's a combination of replicating what's been done here in other jurisdictions as we continue to replicate what's being done here from other jurisdictions. We talked earlier about there's various things that will last the length of time, and really high quality advice. If the business is built on really high quality advice and great client outcomes, that will last the length of time way beyond all of us. And it's really the bedrock of the brand, the reputation, everything that comes moving forward. And so, we're aware, having Tyla and Rebecca spent some time in the UK, the way that advice is delivered from what we've seen across the group is not necessarily just in line with current regulation. It far exceeds that. It's setting a gold standard. And ultimately what we want to do is brings it all the way back to the One Titan. For me, the One Titan is that a client can engage with Titan in any jurisdiction globally, and they get the same level of service and output in any of those offices as they would in any other. And that means there needs to be this gold standard across the board, irrespective of what the regulator in each jurisdiction says needs to be done. We need to uphold that globally to the very best we can find from all the different locations.
Let's not forget either, as much as we like to sit here, in fact, we actually don't like to sit here and say how well we've done. But we have done well, and I think that we should be confident enough in delivering that. But I think we should also be really mindful of the fact that a lot of why we've done well is because we've been plugged into Titan. So Ian Wood will come out, Peter Doherty will come out. We've got in-house legal support. We've got Tiff in compliance. We've got Gretchen in HR. Like, all these things have allowed all of us to be freed up to do the things that we're good at. And that's one of the things that I think we have to give massive credit to James, to Andrew, to Ken, to Damien. They allow us to be us. Like I said in the past, like, you look at this and go, this might not be great, but we're joining something that in theory in a few years will be very valuable, et cetera, et cetera. It gives us the opportunity to make everyone a shareholder. But they've come in and gone, much like we have with our guys, they've gone, you guys are great at that, just go and do that. And they've given us that support to do it. So if you take our biggest client, the biggest client I believe in the group, with the exception of one who shall remain nameless, he moved here. We were given that client. Yes, we have to look after him, and yes, we have to do what Will's just said and give him that same service, that same level of comfort and confidence. But Would we have got that client outside of being part of Titan? Maybe not. Would we be winning clients now? Because our average client has risen dramatically in the last 24 months. But in the last 12 months, it's really been noticeable. And I think we have to be realistic and say that a lot of that must be because we are now part of this larger group, this one Titan, excuse me. And, you know, we have done a good job, but we're also supported by a phenomenal team in the rest of the group.
I think one Titan has to be really underpinned by trust, hey? Because if you are going to, you know, introduce a client that you've been working with for a long time to somebody else in a different jurisdiction, you need to know that that client is going to be looked after as well as you would look after them yourself. I think that is absolutely key to achieving one Titan as we go forward. And Dan, as the CEO, I'm going to aim this question at you. What legacy would you like to see from this business? Not just kind of staff careers. I know you really feel very positively about the people that you work with and what they can achieve. But yeah, what would you like to leave behind one day when you're not in the office and on the golf course?
I should be there now, really.
Another few minutes.
Look, what would I like to achieve? I mean, that's a personal thing. You'd get 3 different answers, but like, there's quite an age spread in this business. I mean, I'm 42 now. I love working in this job. What I'm really passionate about is elevating other people. And there's a real irony in that, because the more you elevate people, the more people go, oh, he's a great leader. And actually, I'm sort of going, no, I actually think he'd be really good at my job. For the guys out there, we need to be realistic. In 10 years, will everybody be here? No. I think there's certain people out there that will go on to do phenomenal things in almost anything that they go and do. So my ambition would be, in terms of a legacy, I'll never know, but I would hope in 10, 15, 20 years that someone sat in a restaurant somewhere or chatting to their friends and they've been wildly successful. And they say, oh, you know, where did your journey start? And I would absolutely love it if the response was, well, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I joined this firm called AHR and I worked for these 6 guys and we built this business and I learned this and this and this and I've implemented that into what I now do. And that person has been wildly successful. I would love that. And I would never even want to know that we get that credit. On a personal level, I make no secret of the fact that at the minute, this is my job. I believe I'm the best equipped at the moment to do it. We ask the guys repeatedly who they think is best to sit in our seats, and they all would say we're all in the right seats. But there will be a point in time in the future where it might be 10 years from now. I hope it is 10 years from now, but somebody will come in with the ambition to replace all of us. You can either battle with that and force that person to leave, or you can support that and you can give the business a bit like a relay race, the ability to move on. I mentioned it yesterday. It's awkward now because they're here, but we wouldn't be sitting here if Will, Tyler, Dan and Assad had been given what they requested from their former employer, which wasn't a lot as long as they're telling the truth. But they didn't ask for much. And that structure was robust. It was 2 people at the top that wanted all the money and they didn't want to share it. And they thought that they were, you know, what option have you got type thing. If they'd have said, yes, you can have it, we wouldn't be sitting here. And there's a lesson there. So I would never want to repeat that. But we've got the next decade of building Titan into what I believe will be the first truly global wealth management business, known for giving great advice, assisting clients wherever they go in the world, providing a great environment for people to work in, a great culture with no ceiling. Anyone in this business can be anything that they want to be, including my job. So if that's the mentality of everyone in this business, we all just want to better each other, raise each other up, elevate each other, give each other the platform to show the world how great we are, then I think that really is our culture. That's our goal. And hopefully that's what one Titan is. If we can implement that across the group, success is just an absolute inevitability, isn't it? You're not going to fail with that attitude. So
Amazing. Anything to add, chaps?
It's difficult to add to that.
I know, right? Yeah. Very conclusive. On that note, I'd like to thank you very much all for your time. And have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.